Hello my fellow gods and goddesses, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today we are doing my September wrap-up. Fall is when I can officially embrace my fall witch spooky sexy librarian aesthetic, and that's what we're emulating today, and I for one am excited about it, so you're welcome. Let's get into this video. The first book I read was Two Dark Reigns by Kendara Blake. This is the third book in the Three Dark Crowns trilogy, and I really loved this. I read One Dark Throne last month, and I gotta say I was really disappointed with it, and I think I'm definitely in the minority. No, I know I'm in the minority here. A lot of people think One Dark Throne is the best in the series, and I personally loved Two Dark Reigns. I loved the expansion into the queen lore and the backstory from previous queens. I really love how the story was going and kind of the build-up of it. I've been thinking about the Three Dark Crown series a lot. I don't necessarily really like it. If I'm thinking about it in an objective way, I don't think it's a well executed story. It doesn't seem like Kendara Blake knew where it was going before writing Three Dark Crowns, if that makes sense. Comparison I can think of is, for example, J. Kristoff with the Nevernight trilogy. You know that J. Kristoff knew how the story was going to play out before he even started to write Nevernight, and that feels like the opposite effect with Kendara Blake. And of course, that could be totally wrong. I don't know what her writing process is, but that's just how the series kind of gives off. But I still just really enjoy myself reading. I just keep reading them and I'm just entertained by it. I think that's all it is. It's just good, quick entertainment. And also it may just be because I do love the queen trope, so my standards of storyline and plot is lowered because of my obsession with royalty, apparently. I think Three Dark Crowns is still my favorite in the series, but Two Dark Reigns definitely gave me everything I felt I was missing with One Dark Throne, and I am very excited to see how Five Dark Fates concludes and how this story gets wound up. The next book I read is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. This is a Victorian YA novel following Audrey Rose, and she is not like other girls trope, but in Victorian era. So basically she has goals and aspirations. She wants to be a mortician, which is someone who like cuts up dead bodies and stuff like that. I think that's what the term is called. I don't know. I don't care. While studying to become a mortician, she gets caught up in the Jack the Ripper cases. I went into it not expecting much. Like, my expectations were not high, but I still had somewhat. I don't know if it's because I am tired of Jack the Ripper cases, and absolutely nothing can touch Assassin's Creed Syndicate's DLC when it comes to Jack the Ripper and stories involving him, so like why would people even try? I don't even know if this book came out before then, but that's just my area of reference. I was okay with the story. I wasn't crazy about it, but like nothing really put me off to it, nothing really made me love it until we got to the ending, because we learn who Jack the Ripper is, and that part just really did not sit well with me. I did not like how this ended, who Kerri Maniscalco made Jack the Ripper. I thought it came out of nowhere. I thought the motivations were really skewed. This whole book was a reach, and I don't mean to like really criticize it because like we don't know who Jack the Ripper is. It is a YA novel. Like, Kerri Maniscalco can do whatever she wants, but I personally, it just left a bad taste in my mouth and I really didn't like it. I think I will continue with the story, especially Hunting Prince Dracula, because I love Dracula and vampires. I'm gonna let that be the determining factor whether I will continue with this series throughout, but right now I'm very indifferent towards it. I'm not even a huge Thomas Cresswell fan. He, like, you know those YA protagonists that like are there's like a borderline between creepy and hot. He like more goes into the creepy side for me, and he's a little rapey in my opinion. I don't know, but that's coming from a Darkling stand, so are my opinions valid? I mean, I think so, but to each their own. The next thing I read was Great Goddesses, Life Lessons from Myths and Monsters by Nikita Gill. This is a poetry collection of feminist retellings of Greek myths. This is broken up into the Titans, the gods, the humans, and the monsters. Yes, I think I got that right. And I hesitate saying poetry collection because I don't think this is a great poetry collection. Like, bottom line, I don't think the poetry in here is all that great. I think it doesn't flow well. It's very surface level. But if we're looking at it as a feminist retelling and like a story, I think this hits the nail on the head. I think it's absolutely amazing, and there will never be a time where I don't rate feminist mythology retellings 5 stars. This is 5 stars. I just, as a mythology lover, as a feminist, these authors and interpretations are just so important, so impactful to the study of classics and mythology and all that jazz. I will always support these. Let me know if you want me to do a dedicated video to poetry, like feminist poetry mythology collection. I think I've only read like 4 or 5, but like that's enough for a video, right? I don't know. Let me know if you want that. But yeah, this is really great. I have quite a few tabs. These collections are so great in my opinion, not only just the feminist aspect of it, but one of the best things about mythology is just hearing everybody's interpretations of the characters and their character development. This one especially is great with examining Hera's character. I think that's one of the standout parts of this collection. The development that Nikita Gill gives Hera is so good. Also, Athena in here is another character where I was like, okay, I see, because personally, I am definitely, I would say I'm borderline a Hera sympathizer, but Athena I've always had like a kind of difficult relationship with, but after reading this, I was like, okay, I totally understand. Not much else to say. Really good. If you pick this up looking for outstanding poetry, I think you'll be disappointed, but if you pick this up just looking for a retelling of myths through a feminist lens, I think you'll really, really enjoy it. The next thing I read is something I am so excited to talk about, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Now, I am very much an anti-classic bitch. Like, I'm not anti-classics. Like, you can read whatever you want. But I personally am not one of those people who will actively seek out classics to read for entertainment. But after watching Becca from Pistachio Paperbacks wrap up, I don't remember which one it was, I think it was her August wrap up, I'll link her and the video down below, but she read Picture of Dorian Gray via audio. Always been really fascinated with Dorian Gray's archetype and his story. Always been super fascinated with it. Also always been fascinated with Oscar Wilde's, like, I've always been drawn to his quotes because as a daughter of Aphrodite, as a son of Aphrodite, which he totally was, he has a lot about talking about aesthetics and beauty. So I've always been really drawn to those, and I love the Dorian Gray movie. Obviously, Ben Barnes is life, and now he's a Darkling, and I just can't. I'm never gonna be over that. So good. So blessed. Always been fascinated with Dorian Gray, but I don't like classics. But when she talked about the audiobook, I was like, oh, that's a great way for me to see if I like classics, because it won't take as much effort to try to read if somebody else is reading it to me. So I was like, yes, we're gonna do that. I downloaded the audiobook off of Libby. I got the Simon Vance narration because I know a lot of people were asking me which one, but now Ben Barnes has his own narration, and all I can say is I'm ready for a reread already. Let's go. This is just a long-winded intro just to say that this has become one of my favorite books of all time. I think this might be my second favorite book of all time, privy to Song of Achilles. And of course, Lightning Thief is always going to be in its own category. That's just nostalgia. I was so in love with everything about this. Every line in here, Oscar Wilde, a man ahead of his time. He was a genius. The lines in here are so great. There's so much philosophical debates happening, done in such a unique way. The humor in here, again, so ahead of its time. It's so sarcastic, it's so dry, it's immaculate. This is just a masterpiece, complete and utter masterpiece. And I just realized I haven't even talked about what the plot of this is. I'm sure you guys know the picture of Dorian Gray, the plot, but I'll just give it brief synopsis anyways. So we follow our main character, Dorian Gray, and he is this beautiful, youthful guy. He's got a lot going for him. He's just a gorgeous man, you know? And he is getting his portrait done. And while he's getting his portrait done, this man, Lord Henry, comes in. He is our morally gray character of the story. He's kind of the embodiment of corruption, and he's bringing to light the fact that Dorian is going to grow old and his youth is going to go away. Oh, it's a great scene that I can't even express into my common person peasant language, but Dorian, kind of his entire worldview just like flips upside down, and he goes through a major breakdown. He's going through it, and he's like, I wish, or I would give my soul to have this painting grow old and me stay everlasting youth forever. And that is exactly what happens. And we see the devolution of Dorian Gray as he is caught up in the world of corruption and everlasting youth and the repercussions of that. This is simultaneously the epitome of what Romanticism as a movement is and what Romanticism stands for, as well as a complete and utter criticism of Romanticism. And it's just, oh my god, it's so good. I cannot wait to get multiple copies of this book. I know I could read this for my entire life, as I will read this for my entire life and get something new out of it. Lord Henry has become probably my favorite character of all time, definitely up there. He is such a compelling person. I will forever be impacted by this book, and it was just a whole ass masterpiece. I am so thankful that I actually read it. Who knew classics were valid? The next book I read was The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black, and this is a fae fantasy standalone set in this town where everybody knows the existence of fairies because in their forest there is this fairy prince, or they think it's a prince, inside of this glass coffin, and he's been in there with his Snow White Sleeping Beauty action for centuries, and it's become kind of a tourist trap, this town where tourists come in, they take like selfies with the prince, and the local kids have parties around his coffin. And one day he breaks out of the coffin and he breaks free and he's missing, and the town goes into chaos. This was so good. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I have discovered through this book that I am such a slut for stories set in a town of humans that know about and accept the existence of like a supernatural being. Such a good trope that I didn't know I wanted and needed in my life, but now that I do, give me all the book recommendations featuring this trope. I loved the characters in here. Oh my god, every single one of them are my children, are my babies. I love them and I want to protect them with every fiber of my being. They are so good. Oh, I love them. I love them so much. Jack, oh, my child. I love him with all of my heart and soul. I just think this was such a good read. It was so much fun. I loved it so much. The plot itself isn't my absolute favorite. Like, the twist was kind of weird and it didn't exactly work out for me in the best ways, but I just loved it regardless. The setting, the characters, the writing, the atmosphere, just excellent. The next book I read was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Oh boy. I have discovered through reading this book that anything revolving dark academia, nope, out of the list. It's not the trope for me. It so does not work for me in any capacity of the word. I cannot handle the pretentiousness that comes with that trope. I really can't. It just makes me mad and frustrated. Maybe it's envy, I don't know, but it's not for me. If We Were Villains is basically secret history, but with Shakespeare kids. So there is a group of Shakespearean actors at this college, and they get involved in a murder conspiracy mystery. You might be thinking, Heather, wasn't The Secret History the worst book you've ever read? Why would you read something that is literally plagiarized The Secret History? I don't have an answer for you. I'm a dumb bitch sometimes, and maybe I just want to like things. Okay? I don't know why I thought I would like this book, because I don't like Shakespeare, I don't like dark academia, I don't like pretentious college kids, and I don't really like murder mysteries. I'm not crazy about them. I mean, I'm indifferent towards them, let's just say that. So why I thought I would like this, I don't know. I really don't. And I didn't. I gave this a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Let me, though, just say that although I absolutely despise The Secret History, this literally plagiarized The Secret History. I cannot believe how M.L. Rio got away with this. Like, for those of you who, like, stan The Secret History and, like, actually like this book, or I don't know what your opinions on this book are, but, like, are you mad? Like, I would be so fucking mad if somebody, like, took, like, Song of Achilles, for instance, and literally plagiarized it. I would be so pissed. If we're comparing the two, If We Were Villains is far superior. Far superior. Like, the plot, characters, writing, all of that jazz. Loved If We Were Villains so much more if we're comparing the two. But it did plagiarize The Secret History. Like, bottom line. Point blank. And I knew they were similar because everybody compares the two, but I didn't know it was plagiarism. I don't know. Let me know down below if you feel the same way, because I was very put off by that. But anyways, there's another thing I really had a problem with this book is homoeroticism. It's not a trope that I particularly like. And I do preface this because I don't mean to come off with as a hypocrite, because Picture of Dorian Gray is probably the #1 example of homoeroticism, but Oscar Wilde was a gay guy, so, and it was written in the Victorian, like, 1800s, so I do forgive it in that sense. Maybe that makes me a hypocrite, perhaps, but at least if the actual gay man wrote homoeroticism, like, you can't fault him too much for that. But Secret History and If We Were Villains have these tropes, and I understand why they're there. Secret History deals with Greek culture, which, hello, gay as hell. Shakespeare was also rumored to be a gay man and probably was into dudes, let's be real. So I get why they're there. I do. But it just makes me feel a little gross. Just the depiction of gay relationships in this, especially If We Were Villains, because If We Were Villains has an on-page gay character, but we don't see the queer representation or the gay representation through him. We see the gay representation through the sexually ambiguous main male characters. And a lot of the scenes with them were very borderline fetishizing. Is it really even borderline though? Like, there's a shower scene. And I mean, it's hard for me to speak on this because I'm not a gay male, but it made me a little uncomfortable. I don't know. Maybe I'm just sensitive about it, perhaps, but I just wanted to mention that, which is another part of why I hate dark academia as a trope, because it is such a prevalent thing interwoven with the genre. And it really doesn't hit well with me, especially in, like, 2019. I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan. The next book I read was Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire. This is a novella series featuring children who go to like Wonderland or Neverland, these like magical lands, and are forced to come back to our world, and they are sent to this school for people who go through the similar experiences. And this is the opposite effect of If We Were Villains. I didn't think I was gonna like this series. I don't know why. Just every single time somebody talked about it, I was just like, sounds okay, but like, not my thing. Maybe it's because of the novella aspect of it, but I loved this. I loved this so much. This was so interesting and funny, and just such a fun concept that Shauna Maguire just did beautifully. It never felt rushed to me. It just felt so. And I also read Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which is the second book in this series, and this one really missed the mark for me, which I was so surprised about because I thought that this was everybody's favorite in the series. At least it seems to be everybody's favorite because they love Jack and Jill so much. And although I think Jack and Jill are interesting characters, they're not my favorite. But even with that fact, I don't think this was a good story at all, really. I thought they really did Jack and Jill kind of dirty, though. Like, in Every Heart a Doorway, they were really compelling, but Down Among the Sticks and Bones, I feel they were really, like, boring and, like, felt super flat. I thought the story was just really boring. Nothing really happened, in my opinion. Just the world wasn't executed in the same way that I feel like Every Heart a Doorway was. It really just was not good, in my opinion, and I'm just really surprised that this is everybody's favorite because I really don't understand, because I thought this one was really flat. It's not a deterrent, like I'm still definitely going to continue the series, but it does make me hesitant to read Shauna Maguire's new book because I know that one also centers around Jack, I think. I'm open to having my mind changed. Now, the next book I read is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. First, I want to thank Whitney from Whitney Novels for getting me this book. She got me this book for my birthday, and so she made this experience possible, and I'm just so grateful for it. I actually have a full reading vlog dedicated to this book that is full of spoilers, so if you want to know all of my in-depth thoughts about this book, go check out that vlog. But for those of you who haven't read this book and don't want to be spoiled for it, this is, first of all, follows Jude, who is a mortal girl who was taken to the fairy realm by her mother's ex-husband, who is a fairy, and he actually murders her parents, and out of obligation, because of like honor or something like that, he takes Jude and her twin sister Taryn, as well as her older half-sister Vivian, who is actually his daughter. I loved this. The themes of this book about gaining power from seemingly nothing is just such a, pardon my overuse of the word, powerful story. I loved it so much. I can't wait to read Wicked King this month. Definitely going to be doing a reading vlog for that one too, so be out on the lookout for that. I am just so happy that I read this, and I feel truly a part of the community now. So I was seemingly obsessed with fairies in the month of September because the next book I read was An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This is very similar to Darkest Part of the Forest, except it's taken place in like old times, and we follow the similar setting where we are in a town that knows the existence of the Fae, and they are actually basically the merchants for the Fae, because in this fairy lore, fairies can't create anything. They can't like cook or make dresses or paint. They can't involve themselves in craft is what they refer to it as. So they rely on humans to do all that stuff for them, so they pay them, and they pay them in favors and magic. We follow our main character Isabel, who is the best painter in this town, and she paints portraits of the Fae, very prestigious Fae, day, and the Autumn Prince comes into her little studio, and she falls in love with him instantly, and she paints human emotion into his face, and that's a big no-no. The Autumn Prince is very angry, and he comes and kidnaps her to stand trial in his court. I really freaking loved this book. Again, it was so cute, so wholesome, so beautiful, so aesthetic, such a good fall read. I just had such a fun time reading this. It was so freaking cute, okay? I am such a proponent of insta-love. I think insta-love gets so much shit on BookTube, which I understand why. I mean, we had to deal with so much of it and so much bad execution of it growing up with the early 2000s, 2010 era of YA. I understand why people are so against insta-love. But I love it so much if it's done well. And if the characters have chemistry, insta-love is just as good as enemies to lovers or friends to lovers. And that's just facts, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about chemistry. It's not about the trope. If you are looking for a fantastical romance, why haven't you read this yet? The next thing I read was a graphic novel, and that was Grimoire Noir, which is, whew, say that 3 times fast. This, again, going on the theme of towns who accept that supernatural people exist. It's a New England town that did all like the witch trials and all that stuff, but now they kind of all accept the presence of magic. Every female is born with magic. No boys can have magic, so it's a very fairly gendered town in that case, which is you know, not great. But this town has like a barrier around it, so everybody's trapped. All of the girls are trapped in here. They can't leave with risk of either dying or having their magic stripped away. We open up the story finding out that our main character's sister, younger sister, has gone missing, and his mother, who is of course a witch, is basically slowly drowning the town because her, like, as she can't stop crying, and so as she's crying she's creating rain, and everything's slowly flooding, and he is trying to figure out the mystery of where his sister is and what happened to her. I really, really liked this story. I thought the art was so beautiful in this. I really loved the story. The main character, he's a little problematic just because he's so judgmental, but he's also like a teenager and he's just trying to find his sister, so I don't fault him too much for that. But I thought the execution of this was really, really well done. The story was really great. Was it the best graphic novels I've ever read? No. Was it the best plot I've ever read? No. But it was entertaining, and I like how the mystery unfolded, and I think it was really great. So if you are looking for a witchy noir graphic novel, I think this is a good one. The other graphic novel I read this month was Sotoku and Nada, which I keep pronouncing wrong every single time I say it. This is a little graphic novel following a Japanese girl and a Muslim girl, and they are roommates in the United States. And it's just an examination of the difference between cultures, common misconceptions about Muslim women. I thought it was really cute. Each of the panels kind of talk about a different scenario, a different scene, a different point in their life or friendship, and I thought it was a really cute, fun read. I also read that for Contemporary-a-thon, which these next 3 books also will be from Contemporary-a-thon. Next book I read was The Hazel Wood by Melissa Albert. This was the September pick for my book club that I host with Carly from Carly's Books. September was our first month of the book club, and it is based on reading books with gorgeous covers. So obviously a really stunning cover. I'm not going to talk too much about this book because we do have an entire live show on my channel that I will link up above for you to go watch it. Follows our main character, and she and her mom have always been on the road. They're always running away because they're super unlucky and things always happen to them which cause them to move ship, and her grandmother is this super famous fairy tale writer, and they find out that she has passed away. And amongst that drama, Alice, our main character, finds out that her mom goes missing. It was a 2-star. It was so poorly executed. Who knew booktubers were right? Carly's description of this is absolutely on point. This book is composed of 2 books that are both unfinished, and I think that is just a perfect description of this book. The execution wasn't well thought out, and the plot was all over the place. I was very much confused reading the last half of this book. If you want to know more in-depth shade and tea, watch the live show. The next book I read is a new favorite, and that is Permanent Record by Mary H.K. Choi. You guys know that I am a huge fan of Emergency Contact. It is definitely one of my favorite reads of 2019, so I was super excited to read her sophomore novel during Contemporary-a-thon. Permanent Record follows our main character Pablo, and right now he is just in a huge financial crisis. He has a ton of debt, whether that be student loan debt, credit card debt, and right now he is working at a fancy like Whole Foods kind of place. He stumbles upon Leanna, and Leanna is a big famous pop star character. It is just their little meet cute, and they get into a relationship together. This book destroyed me. The ending of this, I was really so close to tears. I said this in my vlog, but I was DMing Monty while I was reading this a bit, and Monty, if you don't know, he's the reason I even got into Mary H.K. Choi. He even gifted me his extra copy of Permanent Record, so like I have my own copy now. I love him so much. I'm so grateful for him, so blessed. I told him, I was like, if I had an inch more of emotional vulnerability, I would be bawling my eyes out, because the ending really just hit me so hard. I absolutely adore Mary H.K. Choi's writing. She is the epitome of weaving millennial humor into her stories that don't come off as cheesy at all. It is a very conversationalist kind of writing style, and I don't mean that in a sense that she only writes dialogue. I mean it in the sense that it feels like Pablo is just telling you the story. I would imagine that the audiobooks for this would be really, really good. This is honestly the best example of slice of life that isn't boring whatsoever. I thought it was such a great read that dealt with a lot of serious issues in, again, a very realistic way, even if I wanted to choke Pablo multiple times during this story. It's just a great book. Mary H.K. Choi is a goddess. I love her so much. She is an icon of our generation, and I'm so happy that she exists and she's a writer, and I love her so much. The next book I read was the last book I read for Contemporary-a-thon, and that is The Grace Year by Kim Liggett, or Liggett, I think it's Liggett. A lot of people describe this as Handmaid's Tale meets Lord of the Flies meets Hunger Games, and that's very much a perfect culmination of titles that fit this book perfectly. It takes place in this town, which again kind of follows the trend of what I've been talking about this month, because I've discovered that this is just a trope I really love. It kind of follows this town where they accept this form of magic. And this form of magic perceives itself through 16-year-old girls. Stay with me now. When girls come about 16, which is like the age of like puberty, basically when they hit puberty, they are perceived as very, sexual beings and very corrupted beings. So they are all gathered up and sent away for a year, hence the Grace Year, that's what it's called, to expel all of the magic from their bodies and come back to be perfect submissive wives that don't talk and don't do anything. This was a ride, let me just tell you. It was definitely really uncomfortable read. It wasn't uncomfortable, there's nothing really explicit in this book. There's nothing there's nothing gory in it. There's nothing overly just horror-y about this book, but it's just the atmosphere, the tone, the way the story is crafted. It's just really uncomfortable, really creepy, really chilling. It was a really entertaining read. I could not put this down when I picked it up. It was a wild ride and I had fun. And I'm ready to get off. Alright guys, we are nearing the end. The next book I read was Shadowfrost by Coco Ma. This was not good. It wasn't good. And I feel bad because I don't know if I'm just not the right audience for this. I don't know if I'm just too old to really appeal to this book, because this definitely reads like an early 2000s YA novel. Shadowfrost takes place in this world centered around elemental magic. Pretty much everybody is born with at least one ability to control one of the elements, and our main character is the princess of this land, and she can control all of the elements. And she has to go on this quest to kill this demon to save her kingdom. The fact that I had to read this to keep up my already terrible NetGalley score. I read one review saying that if you've read one 2000s YA novel, you've read Shadowfrost, and I can firmly agree with that fact. Everything from the world building to the characters to the plot was absolutely and completely surface level. It was so mediocre, so lacking of any sort of depth whatsoever. I was reading the author's bio and it said that she wrote this when she was 15, and like, honestly, like really good on her for doing that, because I could never imagine being that determined. But you can very clearly tell this is very much like Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. If you liked Throne of Glass, and I'm not talking the series, I'm talking Throne of Glass, just this singular book with no development in her writing skills that she supposedly has in the rest of the series. If you liked this book, you will like Shadowfrost. And again, I don't mean to shade anybody, but we all know that Throne of Glass is not the best writing, okay? I think we can all agree on that. It's very much like this. It's just very surface level. The book is also very character driven, and because it was so surface level, I couldn't enjoy any of like the banter. It just was super cheesy. It was just very cliche. Maybe younger audiences would like this because it's very accessible. But I also think YA as a category has just improved so much. If I was 15 right now, I would just feel robbed because there are just so many better YA novels out there now that have so much development, so much world building, so much depth to it. I think if this came out like 5 years ago, it would be really successful, but in 2019, it just didn't hit the mark for me. So I lied. That was the last book I read in September. So I read 16 books, not 17. I was trying to pull the veil over your eyes, but I told the truth. I couldn't lie to you. Appreciate my transparency now, because just wait until I get my Skillshare sponsorship. Alright you guys, so that is the end of this video. That was a very long-winded video to film. I have been sitting here for a while. My throat's a little parched. Let me know down below if you've read any of the books I've read, what your favorite book was in the month of September, or just tell me a random fact about yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!